Astrology and painting are being really my world, the way I get connected with my unconscious world. And sometimes when I see a chart, or when I see my transits, or I see my paintings, I really wonder what's really happening with me. So I was thinking about what I could do in relation with these two passions I do have. So I'm going to start, and I would like to, everybody has to ask themselves what astrology, folk stories, psychologies, play art, and dreams have in common. They do have a lot in common, but usually people do not think about astrology or psychology like being related to art or to play or to folk stories or to mythology. Well, most astrologers, we are used to seeing and being very much in touch with mythology, but still I do not know how much you are, people are really, or astrologers are really in touch with what is a sign, what is a symbol, what is a myth. Myth and dreams usually are very, very connected. They say that myths are, and dreams, myths is the dreams of the collective, and dreams are the individual dreams. So we have, the mythology we relate to in astrology has to do with all these social myths, and they are going to get directly in touch with the archetypal and language and the mythological language that's going directly into our nervous systems. So Freud believed that dreams have a manifested content and a latent content. And Jung, he believed that dreams really were a balance between your daily life and your unconscious life. So for Jung, if you dreamt, if you were very happy in the day, in the evening, suddenly you had nightmares and you said, oh, what's happening with me? Why do I have nightmares if I have such a happy day? And usually it's because your psyche is making a balance between your unconscious and your conscious world. And for Freud, it was different. He said the dreams usually had a manifested and the latent. So whatever the dream was giving out, it wasn't really the message of the dream. So, but before we go into the dream and what dreams really mean, we have to go a little bit about the language, because dreams and myths are a language. So we have two different things. We have the spoken word and we have the language. We can learn what the meaning. Usually people say, oh, I'm going to go into the direction, to the dictionary of what is like water and what is a chair and what is a table. But that isn't really what the dream is manifesting. So we have the language. So the spoken word, or the objects by themselves, are the rational part. We can go and learn a language. We can say we go to our first English lessons or French lessons or Spanish lessons, and we say, okay, I'm going to learn this language. And then the teacher said, well, this is chair and this is table and this is good morning and this is good evening. But that not necessarily makes us speak a language. If we want to speak a language, we have to get into our unconscious world. The same happens with myths. When we, or dreams, when we study a myth, or we study a dream, or we even go into and watch a painting, or even a musical, we go to a concert and hear that concert, a simple note doesn't say anything. We have to see the context, the whole context, what's happening with the whole context. And that's a little difficult because we have to get into our unconscious mind. So language is something that has an unconscious structure. We don't see it, but it has. So when we dream or we have like the story, like a myth, we are going to say, oh, this is a funny story. I don't relate to the story. I don't know what's happening. But at the end, something is happening. It really has a structure by itself. And it's an unconscious structure. It's an internal structure. And the spoken word is more conscious. So conscious. So if we go to Freud, so we have the manifested and we have the latent. So the manifested content has to do with the spoken word, and the latent context has to do with the language, with the invariable, with the rules, with the structures, with the unconscious structures, whatever is invisible, whatever is not logic to our conscious world. So the internal logic of the story, it has a structure. We have to keep in mind it has a structure. Then we're going to have something else. Americans or Australians or Britain, from Britain, they are all going to speak a different English. So we are going to have these structures too, where everybody is going to relate. If I see, like also in Mexico, we speak Spanish, and then if we go to Spain, usually they say some words where we say like, oh, what's happening here? How are they saying this? That's a bad word in Mexico, but they don't feel like it. So then we have this third factor when we relate to a language or a spoken word. So this is this was like introduced by us by this modern linguist that's called Ferdinand Saussure. He's a structuralist, the same as Levi-Strauss. Levi-Strauss is also a structuralist, but he applied the linguistic structural principles to the study of myth. For him, myth is a possibility to articulate the world and comprehend it, and we have two ways of relating to it. First, we have the language that is invisible and related to the unconscious world, because it is a codex, a system formed through different signs. So when we relate also to astrology, we're also going to have these two parts. We are going to have, we can learn what's Aries or Taurus or whatever. That's a sign, that's very general. But if we want to go into symbolic world of astrology, we have to go deeper, and there we are going to learn a language. With astrology, we're also going to learn a language. So language is invisible and related to the unconscious world because it is a codex, a system formed through different signs. Language is the communication capacity we have with others, and it is something universal in an abstract way. All who speak the same language use a codex formed through signs. It is a system. That's important. So in astrology, we have a whole system we have to relate to.